Sergio Perez has hinted towards an early retirement as the Mexican driver has faced quite a tough period from 2023's Miami GP, putting Red Bull in a difficult situation when it comes to their drivers' pair-up. Even though his results were under the radar, the amount of money that Perez brings to this team is really substantial, to the level of the Austrian team's management deciding to keep him on board after pressure from two of the biggest companies behind Perez, Telcel and Telmex. So with this in mind, could Perez's early departure cause big trouble for Red Bull, and have they slowly but surely entered into a rebuild mode without even realizing it? It's safe to say that Perez's performance has been rather questionable in the past year, and while not many expected him to match Verstappen's level, the fact that he's P8 and the only driver from this group to not win a race in 2024 does kind of speak for itself. There were many rumours that Perez would be replaced by either Ricciardo or Lawson throughout the summer break, which were immediately shut down by Horner and Marco, who not only confirmed the commitment of the team to Perez, but they've also stated that the engineers will work more on him receiving a better version of the RB20. But now Perez has hinted towards an early retirement, which could be caused by the poor results of Red Bull. And although we were quite quick to bash him for the heavy underperformance while Max was winning races and scoring podiums on circuits like Canada, Spain and Silverstone, the fact that the Dutchman hasn't won a race in 8 events shows that they are more or less in the same boat with the performance of the car. Perez has now hinted that while he has 2 more years in his contract, it's very unlikely that he will race beyond that. As the 6-time race winner stated, "I have 2 years of contract and it's a long time in F1. I don't see myself driving like Fernando, who I admire a lot with all he does at his age. Not because I don't want to drive in F1 until much later in my life, but because I have young children, so I want to spend a lot more time with them, and this 24 races calendar is complicated." Perez has also stated that it's very important for him to be in a position where he could control his fate and his future in the sport, and when elaborating on this matter to a greater extent, the Red Bull driver said, "My main focus is to come to a point in which I can decide my future and to finish when I want to. For now, I am truly motivated. I really want to continue in F1. I enjoy it a lot, especially the good times, but also I've learned to enjoy the bad ones. It's an incredible challenge. I thought about retiring for the last 6 months, but it took me 3 seconds to make a decision because I told myself, look, it would be the easy way to leave after so many years, and in a way to give up, I would have never forgiven myself. I want to finish my career when I want, not when someone tells me." This was not a luxury that many F1 drivers had with Red Bull, as we've seen that if the drivers next to Verstappen have failed to perform on the desired level, they were either demoted back to Toro Rosso, AlphaTauri, or just fired from the team. This is a destiny that was lived by Gasly and Albon, 2 great talents that found their home somewhere else, even though they were raised and groomed by Red Bull's academy. And the fact that the Austrian team went outside their normal way of hiring drivers from within and signed a contract with Perez in 2021 shows that there is always room for making exceptions when the opportunities arise. And Perez has found himself in a very difficult position in the past 6 months when it comes to his performance with Red Bull, because he is the primary reason why the team is now P2 in the Constructors' Championship and under a great threat to lose it and to drop to P3 if Ferrari finds more pace in the last 6 races of the season. For the majority of 2024, Verstappen has been fighting against 2 McLaren and 1 Mercedes and Ferrari car ahead of him without having any help from his teammate like he did back in 2021, and this had a massive effect on Perez's mental health, who said that he would give anything in the world to forget these 6 months. Elaborating further, he said, "If I can change anything in the past of my career, it would be to forget the last 6 months. Really, it has been hard. Imagine you have a car so limiting that you know you can't do anything with it coming in the weekend. The only thing you're thinking about is that you can crash it at any moment because you don't have control over it. And then the media pressure that Red Bull has in that environment where everybody is judging you, believing that you're not as good as before, and many more things." Now, many of of you would think that Perez stepping back would actually do Red Bull a lot of favours, because they will be losing the driver that they've been in some ways forced to keep because of the sponsors applying a lot of pressure on the Austrian team. But what we might have forgotten a bit is how important Sergio is for the Latin American market that Red Bull is really trying to keep alive, as all of Mexico and the majority of the USA's audience cheers for them because of Sergio's presence in the team. This has been admitted by Marco himself, who stated that one thing in which Sergio is much better than Verstappen is selling merchandise in this part of the world, not to mention the massive financial backup that they have from Carlos Slim's companies, who are standing behind Sergio's career ever since it began. On the other hand, if he's to be replaced by Lawson, the loss of these companies will be immediate, and if Perez manages to find a team outside of Red Bull, then it would be a huge financial injection for development from Telmex and Telcel. Of course, it's not like Red Bull would totally collapse if it's not for these financial factors, as being on top of the sport for a couple of years does of course come with lots of pros, such as having the luxury of picking the sponsors that you'll put on your team. But if you tend to lose the first place in the Constructors' Championship and drop to P3, face a difficult period with senior figures leaving left, right and centre, and have your superstar driver being linked with Aston Martin or Mercedes beyond 2026, it's not really creating a stable environment in which companies would like to invest. And of course, the car's behaviour hasn't really helped with this situation either, because Perez himself admitted that now both he and Verstappen are in the same boat. Although the Dutchman managed to qualify and finish P2 in Singapore, while Perez was out of Q2 just like last year, with the only difference that Verstappen was out of Q2 last year as well. Elaborating on this, the Mexican driver said, "I really feel like I am in the same boat as I've been for the last 8-10 races. But now all of a sudden Max has come into similar issues, so a little bit of a confusion there, but it is clear in the data where the problem is. We have produced great cars in the past and there is no reason why we cannot get back on track. We have no questions now, we know the problem." Be that as it may, Perez's performance has opened up the door about a potential replacement in the name of Liam Lawson, and whether we like it or not, the time for rebuilding might have started, at least when it comes to the second seat in the Austrian team. Perez has seen one of his biggest threats for the seat being let off from Racing Bulls, but on the other hand, that doesn't mean the upcoming talent in Lawson or even Tsunoda is not going to come fiercely in the remainder of 2024 as well as 2025 in order to prove that they have what it takes to drive next to Verstappen. The stakes have been increased a little bit now, because the future of the three-time world champion is still all but certain, as Marco has ignited talks that we might be looking at a scenario in which Max will drive for Aston Martin, thanks to the fact that they have a brand new wind tunnel and a combination of Newey and Honda from 2026 onwards. With all this in mind, do you think that Perez leaving Red Bull would do more harm than good for the Austrian team? And if so, who do you think would be a proper replacement for the Mexican driver? Let us know down in the comments below, and once you do that, have a look at the video that's appearing on your screen right now.